In 1944, a British reconnaissance plane was flying over Munich when something appeared behind it that did not sound like any aircraft the world had ever heard before. No propeller roar, no piston engine vibration, just a thin, screaming jet sound cutting through the sky. It was the Messerschmitt Me-262, and even though it arrived too late to change the outcome of World War II, it proved something that every Air Force on Earth immediately understood. The age of propeller fighters was ending. From that moment forward, the fighter jet stopped being just an aircraft. It became a race between speed, radar, missiles, stealth, sensors, and now artificial intelligence. Every generation asked the same question. Can you see the enemy first, shoot first, and survive long enough to return home? What came after the Me-262, across 7 distinct levels of capability, is what this video is about. Let's get into it. Level 1 is the beginning of the jet age. The Me-262, the Gloucester Meteor. The early experimental jet fighters that looked futuristic, but were still being built by countries that barely understood what jet warfare was supposed to be. The Me-262 was faster than the piston fighters around it. That was the terrifying part. Allied pilots who were used to fighting aircraft like the P-51 Mustang suddenly faced something that could appear, attack, and leave before the old rules of air combat fully applied. But here's the part nobody explains. The first jet fighters were not perfect weapons. They were proof of concept. The engines were fragile. The materials were stretched beyond what wartime industry could reliably produce. Pilots needed new habits. Mechanics needed new training. Runways mattered more. Fuel mattered more. Maintenance mattered more. And timing mattered most. The Me-262 showed the future, but it did not own the future. It was fast, but it was not yet a complete system. It could outrun many enemies in the air, but it could still be destroyed on the ground, during takeoff, during landing, or by logistics. That is the lesson of Level 1. Speed changes the battlefield, but speed alone does not win the battlefield. The first jet fighter was not the final answer. It was the warning shot. Level 2 is where fighter jets stopped trying to be better World War II aircraft and became something completely different. The MiG-21, the F-104 Starfighter, the Mirage 3, the English Electric Lightning. These aircraft were not designed like graceful dogfighters. They were designed like missiles with cockpits. Long nose, tiny wings, huge engine, climb fast, fly high, intercept bombers before they reached your cities. This was the Cold War logic. If nuclear bombers were coming over the horizon, you did not need a fighter that could circle beautifully for 5 minutes. You needed something that could scream into the sky, lock on, fire a missile, and get out. The MiG-21 is the perfect symbol of this level. Small, fast, relatively simple, and produced in massive numbers. It became one of the most widely used supersonic fighters in history because it fit the military logic of its time. Cheap enough to build, fast enough to threaten, simple enough to spread across Allied air forces. But Level 2 also came with a dangerous belief. Many air forces started thinking the dogfight was dead. Radar would find the target, missiles would kill the target. The pilot would not need to turn and fight like the old days. And then real combat arrived and embarrassed that theory. Early missiles were unreliable. Radar had limitations. Rules of engagement often required visual identification. Suddenly, pilots found themselves close to the enemy again, in aircraft that had been optimized for speed more than turning. That is the Level 2 lesson. Technology promised to end the dogfight. Reality said, not so fast. Level 3 is where fighter jets became useful in almost every kind of war. The F-4 Phantom, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, the MiG-29, the Mirage 2000. This is the level where the fighter stopped being only an interceptor and became a flexible tool. Air-to-air combat, ground attack, close air support, precision strike, patrol, escort, deterrence. One aircraft, many missions. The F-4 Phantom is a classic bridge into this world. Big, powerful, missile-heavy, used by multiple services, and capable of doing far more than one job. It was not elegant in the romantic sense, but it was everywhere because it could carry weapons, sensors, and fuel in ways smaller aircraft could not. Then came the F-16, and the F-16 changed the conversation. It was smaller, cheaper, highly maneuverable, and built around the idea that performance and practicality could exist together. It was not the most expensive fighter in the sky, it was not the heaviest, it was not the most exotic, but it became one of the most important fighters ever built because it solved a real problem. Air forces do not just need a few amazing aircraft. They need aircraft they can afford, maintain, upgrade, export, and actually fly. That is what Level 3 represents. Not the fighter jet as a national trophy, the fighter jet as a daily weapon system. The one that shows up. The one that flies again tomorrow. The one allies can buy, pilots can learn, and commanders can use across dozens of missions. In simple words, Level 3 is where the fighter jet became the Toyota Hilux of air combat. Not always the flashiest, but somehow, always in the war. Level 4 is where the fighter jet becomes a statement. The F-15 Eagle, the Su-27 Flanker, the F-14 Tomcat. These aircraft were not built just to participate in air combat, they were built to dominate it. This is the level of big engines, long range, powerful radar, heavy weapons load, and serious presence. These jets were created in a world where air superiority was not optional. If you could not control the sky, your tanks, ships, bases, and ground forces were all exposed. The F-15 is the cleanest example. It was designed with one clear idea: no pound for air to ground. In other words, build the aircraft to win in the air first, everything else comes second. Powerful radar, high thrust, large missile load, great visibility, long range, serious acceleration. It was not cheap. It was not small. It was not trying to be cute. It was built to enter enemy-controlled airspace, find enemy aircraft, and remove them from the sky. The Su-27 followed a similar logic from the Soviet side. Large, long-legged, highly maneuverable, and designed to counter Western air superiority fighters. It became the foundation for an entire family of Russian fighters because the basic design had so much room to evolve. This is where fighter jets start becoming geopolitical symbols. When a country buys a light fighter, it is buying capability. When a country operates heavy air superiority fighters, it is sending a message. We are not just defending our airspace, we are contesting yours. If you're finding this useful, subscribe and hit the like button. Every week I break down complex machines, military systems, and status technology in a way that actually makes sense. Now back to it. Level 5 is where fighter jets become too smart to judge by shape alone. The Rafale, the Eurofighter Typhoon, the Gripen E, the F/A-18E/F Super Hornet, the F-15EX, the Su-35. These aircraft are sometimes called 4.5 generation fighters, which sounds like marketing until you understand what changed. They are not fully stealth aircraft like an F-22 or F-35. Most of them still carry weapons externally. Most of them still show up on radar more than a true stealth jet. But they are far more advanced than old fourth-generation fighters. Modern AESA radars, electronic warfare suites, helmet-mounted sights, infrared search and track, data links, precision weapons, advanced missiles, software upgrades. This is where the fighter jet becomes less about the most dramatic dogfight turn and more about information. Who sees first? Who jams first? Who shares the target first? Who fires from farther away? Who survives the missile exchange? The Rafale is a good example of this philosophy. It is not just a fast aircraft carrying weapons. It is a multi-role combat system designed to switch between missions quickly. Air defense, strike, reconnaissance, nuclear deterrence, maritime attack. The Gripen takes a different path. Smaller, efficient, built with networking and road-based operations in mind. It reflects the idea that survival is not only about stealth. Sometimes survival means dispersing your aircraft, launching from unexpected places, and using data better than the enemy. The F-15EX represents another version of Level 5. Take an older air superiority design, then fill it with modern avionics, sensors, weapons capacity, and digital architecture. It is not invisible, but it can carry a lot, see a lot, and work with other platforms that are stealthier than itself. That is the key to Level 5. The aircraft does not need to do everything alone. It becomes one node in a larger combat web. A 1970s fighter pilot looked through glass and radar. A Level 5 fighter pilot is sitting inside a moving data center with missiles attached. Level 6 is the generation most people think they understand because they know one word: stealth. The F-22 Raptor, the F-35 Lightning II, the J-20, the Su-57. But stealth is only part of the story. A fifth-generation fighter is not just a jet that is harder to see on radar. It is a jet that combines low observability, advanced sensors, data fusion, high-end computing, and networked warfare into one platform. The F-22 was built for air dominance, stealth, supercruise, extreme maneuverability, integrated avionics, the ability to find and kill enemy aircraft before they even know the fight has started. It is the pure predator of this level. The F-35 is different. It is not trying to be the same kind of air superiority monster as the F-22. Its real power is that it sees, processes, and shares information. It collects data from multiple sensors, fuses it into a single picture, and gives the pilot a view of the battlefield that older fighters simply cannot match. That is why people who only compare top speed or turning rate often miss the point. They are judging a smartphone by how hard you can throw it. The F-35 is not just a fighter. It is a sensor node, strike aircraft, electronic warfare platform, and information gateway. At this level, the pilot is not only asking, "Can I shoot that target?" The pilot is asking, "Can I understand the entire battle faster than the enemy understands one piece of it?" This is the fifth-generation shift. The best fighter is no longer just the one that flies fastest or turns hardest. It is the one that makes the enemy blind while keeping its own side informed. That is a completely different kind of dominance. Level 7 is the future that has already started arriving. The F-47 and NGAD, GCAP, FCAS, Collaborative Combat Aircraft, AI-controlled test aircraft, loyal wingman drones. This is where the idea of a fighter jet begins to break apart, because the next fighter may not be just one aircraft. It may be a family of systems. A crewed stealth fighter, uncrewed wingmen, long-range sensors, AI decision support, electronic attack, drones carrying extra missiles, drones flying ahead into dangerous airspace, drones acting as decoys, scouts, jammers, or shooters. The U.S. Air Force's F-47 program is the clearest signal of this direction. It is described as a sixth-generation air dominance platform, but the important part is not just the aircraft itself, it is what flies with it. Collaborative combat aircraft, like the YFQ-42A and YFQ-44A, are being developed around the idea of crewed-uncrewed teaming. In simple terms, one human pilot may control or coordinate with multiple unmanned aircraft that extend what the fighter can see, threaten, and survive. This changes the risk equation. In the past, if a mission was too dangerous, you had to decide whether to risk a pilot. In the future, the first aircraft entering the most dangerous zone might not have a human inside at all. That is not a small update. That is a doctrine shift. And AI is already entering the conversation. DARPA has tested AI algorithms flying an F-16 test aircraft against a human-piloted F-16 in within-visual range combat scenarios. Think about that for a second. The dogfight, the most human, instinctive Top Gun part of air combat, is now being used as a test case for machine autonomy. That does not mean human pilots disappear tomorrow, but it does mean the fighter pilot of the future may not fight alone. They may command a formation of intelligent machines, each one performing a role that used to require another aircraft, another pilot, another life at risk. Level 7 is not about building a cooler jet. It is about changing what a fighter pilot is. So these are the 7 levels. Level 1, The first jet fighters, where speed changed the rules. Level 2, Supersonic Interceptors, where the fighter became a missile with a cockpit. Level 3, Multirole Workhorses, where jets became useful across every kind of mission. Level 4, Air Superiority Heavyweights, built to dominate the sky before anything else could happen. Level 5, 4.5 generation networked fighters, where sensors, jamming, and data links became as important as raw performance. Level 6, 5th generation stealth fighters, where the aircraft became a hidden sensor platform. And Level 7, 6th generation and AI-linked air combat, where the fighter is no longer one machine, but the center of an entire combat network. The technology changed every decade, but the question never did. A Me-262 pilot in 1944 and a 6th generation fighter pilot in the 2030s are solving the same problem. Find the enemy, strike first, survive the answer. The difference is that in 1944, the pilot had to carry almost all of that burden alone. In the future, the pilot may be surrounded by machines that see farther, react faster, and take risks no human should have to take. That is the real story of fighter jets. Not just speed, not just stealth, not just missiles, but the slow transfer of danger away from the human body and into the system around it. If this was useful, subscribe. I break down complex systems the way they actually work, not how the brochure describes them. See you in the next one.